Can you see that? Does it appear visible?
3, go.
What's up, guys? Arcade Island, and today we're talking about Black Ops. Is it better than what any Bethesda game that's come out in the last 10 years?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
Controversial take.
Starting about for already, huh?
No, but like I was watching a video and I sent it to you guys where there were like NPC interactions. You can go up and engage in like dialogue trees.
Right.
And no matter where you were standing or how you interacted with, like, let's say they were like, hey, you got to sit down in this chair and have this conversation. If you sat on the left side, if you approached the chair from the right side, different animations, the character would turn and face you differently. And there was just example after example of how intentional they were with adding better animations, kind of scripting it so that the character would turn around differently, just based on your approach. Why haven't I seen that in Starfield or anything else that they put out in the last, how long? Since Skyrim, right?
Honestly, even longer than that, if we're being completely real.
You're talking about like Oblivion?
Yeah, because I mean, like you mentioned, I don't know what it is, but I think Bethesda is just allergic to mocap. Because we see it all the time with, take, for instance, Horizon Zero Dawn, the first game. It had some issues with a little bit of like the stiff, I would say, movement and motions. It looked a little bit, I would say, more uncanny. Yeah. But with the remaster, they decided to re-mocap and redo a lot of scenes, like I think at least 10 hours worth of it, which allowed them to have way more dynamic conversations, so to speak. So the characters would interact, they would emote, they would have like a lot of these like very natural, fluid-looking animations for the most part to allow it to be more immersive. But for some reason, every single like Skyrim game, let me rephrase that, every single Bethesda game that has to do with like, Skyrim, like the Elder Scrolls games or, Starfield or just any of these titles, you always have characters that whenever you interact with them or whenever you look at them, they're like, hey, how's it going? Ah, I see. So you got the new artifact. Interesting. Okay.
Now do the angry face.
Halt, criminal scum.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, dude, okay, on one hand, it's funny. Like, yes, it has a bit of charm, sure. But this is something like archaic at this point. This is from like the early 2000s. What are we doing still having this type of, dialogue in the year of 2024?
I kind of feel like if any like actual other genre stayed as stiff and as stagnant as what we've seen out of Bethesda, what we've seen out of even BioWare, that people would stop playing those games altogether, and we'd be like, oh, why are the RPGs gone? Kind of like how we talk about the stealth games, which have mostly gone to the side, and now you just see their mechanics in standard games. And not to say that Black Ops is a standard, RPG, like role-playing game.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's a first-person shooter with some of those elements, but why are those elements 10 times better? And let's talk about BioWare, because you're Mr. BioWare over here.
Am I like Mr. Everything? Mr. Worldwide?
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Games a lot.
Mr. Games a lot?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, BioWare. When we're talking about BioWare, there are several games that we have to kind of take into consideration. Mainly the two solid titans are Dragon Age, Mass Effect. There are some others, but it's mainly those two. I would definitely say that even like in those titles, and mind you, they're older titles nowadays.
I mean, Dragon Age came out like a couple weeks ago.
Well, Veilguard, came out a couple weeks ago.
We're hearing stuff about that game kind of being weird in a lot of ways, and being inferior to what's that game that you guys love?
Dragon's Dogma?
Dragon's Dogma or Baldur's Gate?
Baldur's Gate.
Oh my goodness. Okay, but Baldur's Gate is a whole nother beast of its own, okay? Let's
Baldur's Gate is a whole different, which we're gonna divert for a quick second here. Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age are like two different games, but they have different same settings. You have Dragon Age, which is like more intense combat.
More grimdark, you would say?
More grimdark, I would definitely say in certain aspects. Especially the older Dragon Ages, they're a lot more darker. Baldur's Gate is a little bit more like, hey, turn-based, think about what moves I'm about to do, think about where I need to go, that kind of stuff. So those are kind of two different, situations we have coming out from there. But I would definitely say, though, when it comes to, Call of Duty, Bethesda, BioWare, they may have, different, gaming aspects, but there are certain similarities that are definitely like one kind of outshines than the other, and it's kind of surprising where this first-person shooter game, this is supposed to be for like COD bros,
Right.
is like, oh wow, that's actually kind of a nice aspect, which for a game that's not really supposed to be like choice based dialect, like talking, like RPG role playing wise, you don't really expect that for a dude bro first person shooter, but yet
Right.
here it is, where like you said, the simple turning around in different directions. I should be able to do that in like Mass Effect Andromeda.
Right.
Yet, Mass Effect Andromeda is a whole.
Yeah.
It took several. It took a while for it to actually even get to the point where it's like playable.
Jeez.
So
Now, I'm just thinking about like being in your home base and walking around and interacting with certain characters and having the option to learn more about, say, this one character that you guys picked up along the way, and kind of going through the different dialogue options. Now, to be fair to literally every true role playing game, you're not going to have a dialogue option that gives you an option where now this person joins you on a mission and now it's a romance and now they give you a special item, or your parents come and visit you and they ask what, it's none of that.
Right.
Like in that way, Starfield did it better, right?
Right.
But it's like there's something about the care and attention. It's almost like maybe Treyarch should stop making Call of Duty games and make a real role playing game with some guns and stuff. And I don't know.
And make guns that make sense, unlike Starfield. Have you guys seen like the gun types in Starfield?
They're all bad.
They're all
They're
bad.
so terrible.
Like you don't have to be like a gun enthusiast, like to look at some of these guns and be like, that's just terrible design.
I guess it followed
And the ammo
them,
types make no sense.
Oh yeah,
They don't
yeah.
make
I
any
think it followed
sense.
them from like Fallout's like gun design as well.
Fallout has that, and as much as people love it, Cyberpunk is also a victim of that as well.
Yeah, it's odd because I would say at least with Cyberpunk, it's a little bit more intentional, just because of like the setting and everything, and you know that a lot of the lore that's included about these weapons in the game, it's purposely put there for the purpose of, hey, we know this weapon is a joke. There's no way this will feasibly work. So we're just going to let you know in the lore that it's not good. Like, I mean, the whole vending machine gun, for example, that's
my
just
goodness.
like plastic and pretty much you're not, it's a one use, right? You use it one time and they say, hey, it's highly recommended. You just toss this away. Don't even bother reloading it because it might explode.
It's the high point of Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Right.
facts.
That's funny, dude. So, can we talk about when we talked about Cyberpunk? We talked about any of the BioWare games. Clearly, the scope is just different, right?
Yeah.
Now, like, how hard would it be? And we're not game designers, so like, maybe it's not a fair question. But how hard do you think it would be for them to say, like, hey, some of these things that we're seeing in a Call of Duty game, let's implement them into our game. Let's add a little bit of mocap. Let's move it around a little bit. Maybe not for like every single character in the game, because in these games there's like hundreds and hundreds of characters. But what do you think?
Well, okay, I will say
Is that fair to ask for?
Yeah, it will definitely add to the budget. I would definitely agree to that. But I feel like when you put these things and you take the time to intentionally do these things, the whole purpose of these role playing games is to get you immersed in these worlds. Well, I guess gaming in general is to get you immersed, right? So just having that mocap option, adding all these additional animations, so to speak, it would definitely greatly add to the experience. And I think what they could do, as much as I don't like it, they could try to essentially take a lot of the mocap that they do have and pretty much have AI sort of assist them a little bit. Not to say like, hey, you need to completely remove the human element, because I think that's not fair to anyone. But you should have like people who like go in there, work on like adding the mocap in, and if you need additional mocap, maybe have some of it at least assist a little bit with like just the process of animating it.
Right. Now, question, and this is, I guess, a question of ethics at this point, because I heard somebody say, look, well, some of that was like procedurally done. And with games as big as that, where there's a lot to do and a lot of polish is required, where you just clip through random walls and it's like, oh, it's a buggy mess. Why'd they release it? Well, because it's a 100-hour campaign. Like they couldn't possibly, especially with all the new tech that we have, like some of it works, some of it doesn't. But could they use procedural or AI, right, to kind of clean up some of those animations, or I guess produce more in ways that kind of make sense, or do you feel like we're stealing jobs from animators and guys who are doing it?
I would say that for the most part in like the gaming industry, right? You're gonna have people who are gonna be putting their time and their passion into the work, right? You're gonna have mistakes because human error is a thing, right? And I don't think that we should like how do I say this? I don't think that we should deny the use of AI. I just think that we should limit it, right? You know, obviously, whenever you write a report, right, you're going to be using, a tool to be able to make sure that all your spelling and grammar is correct, right? You're not going to go and look into the book and, check to see if every word is there or check every grammatical error yourself, right? Unless you're like that. But I know like a majority of people are not going to be able to do that, right? I don't think you're stealing a job away from anybody. I just think that, just don't make that the whole entire shtick.
What do you expect out of the next game? Now, do you want these dynamic movements and really immersive things, or do you want like a better story, better weapons, better powers? Do you want just everything? Or pretend you can't have everything. What's important to you?
Honestly, so in an Elder Scrolls game, I believe the most important thing you can possibly have are a good story and a very choice-based story. A lot of Elder Scrolls games, you make a lot of decisions, a lot of choices. There's a lot of adventures to be played. Especially in Skyrim, you're like going all over the place. Back and forth and back. You're 1 minute you're fighting against a civil war, the next minute you're fighting against a dragon, the next minute you're assassinating the emperor. Like there are multiple stories in an Elder Scrolls game. You have to have a solid story, but also have a lot of like branching off stories that say, I can play this game for a really long time and not get tired of it. The second best thing to have is a really good environment. If your environment is just kind of minimal, you're not really living up to to that Elder Scrolls, Bethesda experience.
Right.
Which is why I think Starfield ended up failing.
Yeah, those environments were kind of barren and empty, not a lot going on in most, like 99% of the planets.
Absolutely.
Nothing makes me more ecstatic than when I'm just casually walking around and I see Alcor just come up to me and say, hey, I have a letter for you, out of the blue. Like, I didn't act for you. This ain't a quest line. And it doesn't just happen like once. It happens multiple times. Or like there's like a story quest line where a bunch of cultists just come up and assassinate you in Skyrim, right? That is what you need in your not your Bioware, but I mean a Bioware game would also be great with that too. But that's what you need in your Bethesda games, right? Those are the main kind of things. Making sure that the environment is also kind of interacting with you. You don't have to always go out and interact with the environment. And having a really good story. Another thing we need to make sure we're doing is that whenever I have like choice-based, hey, these are the certain kinds of like dialogue options, making sure that those dialogue options actually kind of like relate. One of the biggest things that I've noticed about the new Dragon Age Veilguard is that several of the dialogue choices don't really have a lot of impact. So it's like,
that's a shame.
I can be nice guy, I can be joking nice guy, I can be more straightforward nice guy. There is no like, hey, I can be a very, calm, collected individual, or I can be like a very gruff, like I am like a mean person,
Right. You don't get to choose your personality.
You don't really get to choose that personality. There are kind of different options and dialogues, but not necessarily,
So it's like the
pointing you in one
illusion.
direction.
Yeah, it's illusion of like free choice, free will.
Yeah, they did that also in Andromeda, which is unfortunate, where your writer just doesn't really have a lot of say, which is
It's interesting.
which is completely kind of like separate from Commander Shepard.
Yeah.
Where it's just like I'm Paragon and I'm like, hey, these are the things I uphold, or I'm Renegade and I'm like, just gonna kick you in the face, like.
Right. I wonder if they're trying to move people away from like the GTA, just kill everybody in a room like energy, versus being like, hey, like let's be good to people, which isn't RPG.
No, it's not. There's no choice in that. You're not making decisions and then having consequences afterwards.
Honestly, I think a really good example of that, not to glaze Baldur's Gate anymore, but Baldur's Gate kind of deserves it. But they handle the whole aspect of either choosing to be a good person, choosing to be sort of neutral, or choosing to be evil. I mean, yes, you're on a path usually to be a good person, but when you choose to be evil, they make you actually feel like how evil these things are. Like, for example, one of the first things you can do when you reach after you leave the Nautiloid, which is this alien-like spaceship, you're on this beach, and eventually you come across this camp that's being attacked by goblins. Now, you have the decision. You can help kill the goblins, kill the raiders, and defend the people, the tieflings in the grove, or you could be like, you know what? nah, all of them deserve to die. I'm gonna just do that. And guess what? If you do that, it ends up affecting a different storyline, which in turn helps you to either be in good standing with some other villain characters, or if you choose to protect them and save them, it'll put you in bad standing with them. There's so many different, I would say, consequences for either doing things good or doing things bad or just
That's
doing things
interesting.
neutral,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
interesting.
like every good consequence doesn't have to always reward you.
Oh, yeah,
some
absolutely.
consequences can bite you in the butt.
Oh,
and that's what a
absolutely.
lot of games used to do back then, which is what I'm not seeing happen in current games now. An example, so Mass Effect 2, right? You're going on a quest for Samara, just a card mission, right? And there is this one gang lady who's like, oh, I'm just a new person here. I haven't done anything wrong, right? Paragon option lets you let her go, right? And then later on, you turn to find out she actually killed a lot of people. She's actually a really bad person, and you just let her go scot-free. It would have been better if you had just taken the shot as a renegade.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow.
Not every good guy decision leads to good outcomes.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's kind of
I
what
love
we don't see like in these current games where it's like, well, I'm just kind of gonna say what my thing is, but at the end of the day, all the dialogues kind of lead to the same result. Sometimes you might have a little bit of difference, but they're kind of still the same at the end.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've been playing through the Dishonored series. I'm on number 2. Well, back in number 1, there's the granny. I forget her.
Like Granny Rags.
Granny Rags, and she actually tells you like, "Hey, I need you to save me from these guys." And okay, so you save her from the guys or whatever. No big deal. She rewards you, or she does something, and she's like, "Hey, I'll give you more rewards if you go and literally use the plague to poison people." And not just poison the people in the overall world, but
Right.
poison people. Whoever's like taking, I guess the elixir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can dump like you have to literally go do this side mission at the doctor's house, steal some like infected rat parts and put them into the elixir, and it like mass poisons people. And if you do that, she'll give you more, but like a rune or
Runes.
something
Yeah,
like that.
runes for your powers.
Yeah, so you upgrade your powers. And so it's like you're doing this really high chaos thing. It's like that's just like evil. It doesn't actually increase your chaos, which is strange. Okay, but you get a whole new storyline that you can play, and then you see her later on, and it just feels like it's more complete. And there's additional conversations after the fact, and people bring up like someone poisoned my stuff, and it's just like, I know I'm kind of rambling, but it's interesting to see like your decision to be able to do things that are not good, and then see the consequences play out in front of you, or deciding on your second playthrough, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be involved. Like I don't want to be involved in kind of seeing how that plays out and playing maybe without the additional power up. So just a choice. Choices in games. Will Call of Duty continue to evolve, or will we just kind of, or not just Call of Duty, but like RPGs in general? I guess that's the question is, will this little Call of Duty game push the industry forward? Especially now that I guess Microsoft owns both Bethesda and
Activision Blizzard.
Activision Blizzard, which Treyarch falls under them,
Right.
and all that. Will they be able to take those assets and make sure that we're getting better games in general? I wonder.
God, I hope so. I really do because especially Microsoft, they have a lot of good a good IPs under their belt now.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like
A lot.
A lot, and you could definitely pull the PlayStation and be like, hey, we're gonna make a bunch of exclusives, and we're gonna make sure that it's just for us, and they're gonna smack. Like you could do it. Now, will they do it? No, I don't think
Probably
so.
not, just because they want market share.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like you do have the potential to be one of the best. All right. You have the potential to make the comeback. You have all the tools just laid out in front of you. What are you going to do with those tools is the real question. So
Yeah. Put the question to you guys in the audience watching or listening, wherever you are. What do you want to see in your next RPG game? Or are you just happy to see your first-person shooters like Call of Duty kind of expanding and giving you more rich worlds and options and conversations? How are you going to approach getting this senator's eye scan? Are you going to blackmail his secretary? Or are you going to go kidnap him? Like, what are you going to do? Stuff like that. Like, what do you want in your next game? Let us know in the comments and or on social media. See you guys next time.
later, Gators.
Peace.
Deuces.